I think the problem is that now, in this day and age, as somebody who comes from a media background, but also as a citizen of the world, we live in an age where it's possible to construct an entire alternative reality from lies, from half-truths, from conjecture, and a collusion of misinformation. And I think the danger of that is that you could be creating mythologies that no one is refuting, and it leads to really dangerous impressions. For me, as somebody who's an immigrant to the United States, I've lived in the US for about 25 years, I think the moment this became very clear to me that we live in a post-truth world, it might have existed before, but to me it became evident when, right after 9/11, the President of the United States blatantly lied to the country about why and who attacked the towers, and in turn attacked a country that actually might have been evil or not, we don't know, but that had nothing really to do with those particular attacks. And the fact that there wasn't really a concerted, comprehensive counter-programming and opposition to that, to me, I think that meant we really are firmly in a day and age where you can create a hallucination, if you will, and people are just going to go along with that.
And you're thinking about Iraq at this point,
Yes.
not the Afghanistan? Or
Correct.
Okay.
I mean, the whole thing was one big part of like a great big lie that was told to the American people and the world. And present day examples of this kind of thing are, and I'm speaking only about the USA, but I think this is happening in the rest of the world because we are, ironically, the leader of the free world in this regard these days. All Mexicans are rapists. Muslims are all terrorists. People are hungry and desperate and storming our borders, trying to break in. Just the other day, I was watching Mike Pence having an interview with Jake Tapper, and he said the USA has the cleanest air in the world. Patently untrue. And just bullshit. And Jake Tapper is actually refuting him, but he's going on saying this. So we live in an age where basically you can construct whatever alternative reality you want with proper collusion from your constituents, and we can all live in this bubble. And when the President of the United States, and not to bring up the T word, and I know we're all dreading bringing him into this conversation, but if you're actually listening to the President of the United States go on and on and on for hours, talk about stuff that is completely untrue, and you're sitting in Idaho listening to this, you're likely to believe him, right? And that's what is the beginning of the creation of an alternative reality that a lot of people in the United States and the rest of the world are living in. And I think it's truly dangerous.
Well, I guess I want to disagree pretty forcefully with you, Nusrat, because I think this is nothing new. That's where I want to disagree.
I didn't say it was new. I'm just saying that for me, as a recent immigrant to the United States, it became patently true that we are firmly in the post-truth era in the U.S.
Right.
Because of that particular incident.
That assumes there was a truth era. So that's what I wanted to talk about. I think this is a really, really interesting and difficult topic, which makes it a good topic for this discussion. But let's establish a few things. Since I'm a journalist and a former journalism school dean, my inbox has been full since the 2016 election with invitations to conferences and panels on fake news, post-truth, etc. Embedded in those, it seems to me, are three assumptions. One, that there is such a thing as the truth, and that it can be determined and agreed on. I think that's really, really questionable, because a lot of politics is about preferences, not facts. We can get back into that, but keep in your mind the question of, if we want to be in a truth era, whom do we appoint to decide what's true and what's not true? That's really important. Or do we trust the New York Times editors to put Jean Carroll's story on the front page and declare it to be news? Evidently not. So many examples like that. That's question number one. Question number two is, if we can determine the truth, then what do we do about untruth? That is, basically, you can't control fake news unless you cut back on the principle of free speech or regulate speech or something like that. These are ideas that Europeans tend to be more comfortable with, Americans less comfortable. But again, that's an underlying question we have to talk about, is are we willing to essentially censor or forbid untruth from being disseminated through the media or even by politicians? That one's really hard to enforce. The third issue is it's assumed, it's embedded in this conversation that if we lived in a truth atmosphere instead of a post-truth or fake news atmosphere, that the public would come to the correct political conclusions and it would affect voting behavior. That really runs against